And then trying to take a look at what did regulation do right and wrong, and what was sort of a shock to the system that couldn't have been managed. And it's true, just like today, fuel prices go up. That's a shock to the system. And the question is how you manage that uncertainty. And there are a few lessons from the 70s, and the issues are inherent to regulation. It's you'll hear about sort of better, stronger, faster regulation can solve some of these problems, but these issues are all still here today if you don't rely on competitive markets. And the first one is the lack of market price signals. Is in a competitive market, people can look at the market prices and figure out whether to build or what to do. In the regulated market, you had administrative forecasts that were typically done, maybe once a year. Things were negotiated as to what gas prices, how they were going to increase. Often it was, old data was used. And so you have no market price signals. And so as the market is going down, you're still using forecasts that were 3 or 4 years old, and you can end up, overbuilding or doing bad things. The perverse capital incentives is a second one. Is that with regulation at that time, there was used and useful. You would only get to recover something if you demonstrated that it would be used. And so if you had a nuclear plant that was a quarter built, and you knew that the economics, you should abandon the plant, you didn't have that much incentive to abandon the project. What you would do is you would continue to build and try to get it recovered in rates. And that's something else that's present in regulation. The third one is the allocation of risks, and this one is it's building a baseload power plant is very risky. Whether you have customers bear the risk, investors, or anyone else, there's a lot of risk associated with the value of that, and there will be as we look forward with carbon. And investors, if they have to bear that risk, they will analyze, since they're betting their money, analyze the upsides and downsides and make decisions appropriately. On the other side, if you just put all that risk on customers, it typically gets underestimated. It's because you put it on customers doesn't make the project any less risky. They may be picking up the costs, but you will tend to overbuild if you put the risk on customers or favor sort of capital-intensive solutions. And then the final one is the political and regulatory fixes that tended to overcompensate. And a lot of the regulation it had good intentions. So one of the things that happened after in reaction to the nuclear plants and rate-based assets was that people were expected to enter into contracts, competitive contracts, and that was part of PURPA, and they started to enter into contracts with qualified facilities, QFs they're called. But the first part of it was people fought for about 5 years as to what the price should be for the contracts. In that time, market prices went way down. They finally had decided the prices, and they were all old prices. And so in New York, it was decided 6 cents a kilowatt hour. In Maine, it was something like 10 cents. And the utility was required to sign the contracts. And there was a lot of overhang due to that. So after this had happened, there were a lot of contracts, and a lot of those contracts still exist today. And it ended up, costing about an extra $50 billion. That's in the 200, but portion of that was sort of the fixes that were afterwards.